Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Censor has revealed that in spite of the great success that Ghosty has had with OpTic Headquarters so far, he still fears for his position in the team going into next season. He's pretty much done everything asked of him so far this season, but there are plenty of players with better pedigree in theory coming for Ghosty's spot next year. Will he be able to maintain it? Is he right to be somewhat concerned? And does Huke feel the same way about his position in the starting OpTic lineup? Very much interested your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to discuss. Firstly, on the UK CMA, so effectively the Mergers and Acquisitions Commission or whatever, right, that makes the call on whether antitrust laws, this type of stuff in the UK, are going to be enforced. Now, it seems that, I'm not exactly sure what's happening in the US right now, but it's believed that the UK CMA is pretty happy with the way things are going with the Microsoft Activision merger, so this is going to be a long process, and it probably won't really be in effect until the start of 2024 when the takeover is kind of complete, but it does seem that things are trending right now towards that being the case. Not exactly sure what the antitrust laws are going on in the US and of course all the other countries around the world, but it seems likely that this will be approved in the UK very shortly, or the April 26th. We expect a final decision here, and probably things will shortly follow around the world as well. There was also this OpTic Maniac yesterday, so a change happening here with here in the heart of downtown Dallas, where the Envoy gaming headquarters used to be, that's now getting changed to OpTic Gaming. So I think this is, I wonder what Astro thinks about this, right? Now, we know that the Headquarters is going to die, unfortunately, and it's no longer going to be a thing. I know that Dashy and Formal are probably very annoyed about that because they don't seemingly, or Dashy doesn't seemingly like playing too much from the headquarters in the center of Dallas, where they have to drive to. I think Scump was getting, not frustrated, but Scump towards the end of his playing days was like, yeah, I've got to drive like, 25 minutes each way there and back to go and scrim every day, and Scump didn't really want to be doing that. He'd preferred to scrim from the Headquarters, which was a bit closer in Frisco. This is, I believe, a little bit further to get to, but this used to say Envy Gaming. It used to have the Envy logo, you say Envy Gaming underneath it, and as of yesterday, this is Maniac's Twitter, it was getting changed to the OpTic logo with OpTic branding and all this type of stuff. So, it's kind of inevitable in a way. I'm sure that Hastro has agreed to this, but I do wonder in a way, like, what Hastro thinks about his brand being gone now, right? Like, Envy as a brand has been retired, and it makes sense that eventually the headquarters that was Envy's is going to be overtaken and is now going to be called OpTic's Headquarters, and like that's the relationship that they have. I think probably Hastro knew from day one of signing this deal that Envy as a brand would be overrun by OpTic's brand, because it probably makes the most sense of both parties in terms of sponsors and fans and all this type of stuff. Like, OpTic is straight up a bigger brand than Envy from an audience perspective, so it makes sense, and Envy is kind of still the back end of the company and owns it in a way, because while it was technically a merger, like obviously they partnered up to give that financial support to the OpTic brand and kind of rebrand in that way. So interesting stuff, but yeah, this is one further step, right, of OpTic taking over Envy. From a branding perspective, maybe the final step you could say, really, because most other things have already happened, but yeah, the Headquarters is going to be no more in very short order, and everyone I suppose is going to be playing out their headquarters. At least they're actually using it, because for many years, this headquarters, massive headquarters, was not really used for anything at all. Let's talk on OpTic Texas then. Unfortunately, Method and Scump, I don't believe, ended up playing anything on the challenger side. There were some discussions about whether it would be, Bows and Methods and Zuma would come in and all this stuff, and Zuma's been wanting to just kind of chill out a little bit more and actually just play some COD and enjoy himself, rather than having to grind out flank episodes left, right and center every single day. So it makes sense for all parties on this one. Still a little bit unfortunate. But speaking of the OpTic Texas starting team, Ghosty came in not long ago, and it was a massive surprise when Ghosty was signed in a way. We thought, okay, damn, is OpTic really going to sign a challengers player? Are they actually going to go for this? We know that Shotzzy talked to a couple of people, Dashy talked to a couple of people, they made the call, they made the change, and it's obviously delivered in spades at Major 3, unexpectedly so, really. After the first couple of matches they played at the tourney, I did not think they're making the run that they were. Maybe part of it was crowd-led, but certainly part of it was Ghosty improving the team, getting the best out of the other players on the roster. But Ghosty apparently is still concerned about maintaining his position on the team going into next year, and you can understand why in a way. There's lots of talented players out there right now. They would love the OpTic spot next season. I'm sure many of them would. Ghosty has, well, taken advantage of a great situation for himself. Obviously, the Scump retirement, the iLLeY drama, whatever exactly happened there. They decided to look for a player like Ghosty. He was popping off at the time, dropped to 1.3 in challenges, was the star player in that role after Major 2 in Boston. So they thought, you know what, we've got to get this guy, bring him in, and he's made the most of his opportunity so far. So Martin comments on this and says, look, Ghosty, look, you've got to realize that you've had a great result here at Major 3. You played incredibly well in challenges, got picked up to the OpTic team, did well enough online, came into LAN, like created this incredible comeback story for the fans, and you've pretty much done everything right. But yet he says that Ghosty is still concerned that his spot is going to be gone next year, or certainly far from a guarantee for him to actually be remaining on the team. And it's an interesting part of the discussion because most of the talking points for next year are generally about Huke, right? It's like, okay, well, Huke, is he going to stay there? Is he going to go? Like, are they going to get put in type thing? But less people are talking about Ghosty staying or going, even though it does seem like, especially, he's taken a lot of work off Shotzzy's plate. It's quite clear to see in the communication that Ghosty is doing a lot of the in-game leadership stuff and can allow Shotzzy to go rogue. And there are some other players that can do that role, but how many other players are there in the flex position that are as talented as Ghosty is, that, you know, get on well enough with those guys and are maybe of the same generation, which maybe helps as well with the culture they're trying to go for, that can do that? iLLeY was one, then for whatever reason that broke down, and Ghosty is another. There might not be too many other candidates that can actually completely fulfill those roles. So I don't think Ghosty really has to be too concerned. If it were me, like, and I was Huke, that's the man that I'd be concerned about maintaining my spot for next year, but Ghosty might have a better chance than you think.
But I had to say this to Dan, because he needs reminders sometimes. Hey, Ben, you won the Challenger LAN and dropped to 1.35 and got the MVP. Then you got called up by OpTic Gaming and you played your first ever pro event on OpTic at their home event, and you started in losers round 1 and made a run all the way to second place, and you knocked out Atlanta FaZe in the process. You secured a spot on the most prestigious team, and there's tons of optimism and opportunity at every turn you make. Stay grounded in the day-to-day routine and reflect. You'll be the best you. He's genuinely, like, worried about his future at times, and I'm like, Dan, what more can you possibly ask for than to win an MVP, get on the biggest and most prestigious team, and get second at your first event on that team? Why does everybody think that I have some beef with Shotzzy? I swear, between like what Shotzzy uploads and like what I say, people must think that we hate each other or something. I don't think you guys understand how like friendly me and Shotzzy actually are. We are very friendly with each other. Every time I talk to Shotzzy, all we do is just laugh and all the fucking time. Like, everyone thinks that we are like against each other or like I hate him or something. I have nothing but the absolute utmost respect for Ant. He's one of the best players in the game, one of the best content creators out. He's doing everything right. He's killing it on all fronts. In game, out of game, social media, content. Like, he's the man, dude. Shotzy's the man. Now, like, there's going to be natural drama in general because we're in a high, intense, competitive environment every day. So if I play against Shotzzy, if it's ranked, or if it's like in a match or something, because I'm in challengers and I don't get to associate with him all the time, it's going to be dramatic. And there's going to be some banter.
So Doug speaking facts there. To be honest, he discussed, you know, some apparent beef with Shotzzy, which I wasn't even really aware existed. But apparently there is none according to Doug, so fair enough. But also the point of Ghosty, right, where he says, look, Ghosty, because Doug and Ghosty are pretty close. They, you know, were in challenges before and obviously have a relationship there. They teamed together. They were like in the same house, right, when Doug brought Ghosty in. So they obviously discuss things between each other. And Ghosty's been texting Doug, probably been like, oh, you know, I'm a bit concerned here that next year I'm not going to still get a spot on OpTic. But, you know, he's doing the best he can at the moment. Yes, his stats aren't anything crazy, but his series win-loss is very good out of the maps they've played. And it really, at the end of the day, it's the results that matter and whether the team appreciates him and knows what he's doing, which it seems like they do. But still, if you're on OpTic, it just goes to show the level of pressure there is there on OpTic, and also the level of interest there is from other players to try and get onto this team, that Ghosty, despite the success they've had so far, is constantly looking over his shoulder at potential other players that want to nab that spot for next year. Because there was also thoughts, what if you just bring Pred in and just, you know, put Huke to the flex or something, right? Just screw the whole idea of having this player in Ghosty's role, get Dashy to do the in-game leading, I don't know, and then just bring in Pred anyway and keep Huke if he's playing well. Like, that probably doesn't make sense or wouldn't work, but there have been some discussions on it because those guys are flexible players, but I think Ghosty is a better fit for this team at the present time. But also, could this be a positive thing for Ghosty in a way if he knows that there's players coming from him? It feels the same with Huke in a sense. Like, I think Huke has played better lately than he has done before, potentially because that he knows that if he doesn't perform, Pred or others are going to come for that spot next season. Like, I think Huke has that additional element of pressure that I think for years, Scump has played great for years, don't get me wrong, but Scump was never concerned about getting dropped from the team, right? Or Shotzzy or Dashy on the... Okay, maybe Dashy is a bit more nowadays, given what's happened recently, but I think there's certain players over COD history, maybe especially on the OpTic team, that not exactly got a bit too comfortable, but didn't play at their absolute limit, right? There's maybe an argument that Scump was playing at like 90% of his capabilities, or maybe he was playing at 100% of his capabilities, but he wasn't playing at like 110% or 115% that a player might play at if their spot was threatened, and if they were going like hella hard every single day because they know this is their chance to get this spot on this organization, and if they squander it at all, then they're going to get replaced because of how competitive it is and how many other players are going to be free agents at the end of the season. So maybe that's even pushing Huke even further, pushing Ghosty even further, which could be a positive thing for both players come the end of the season. But I still feel like they're going to have to win something, this team, if they want to stay together for next year. And that's the thing, there are other players in Ghosty's shoes that might want that spot. Now, I know people have been kind of half joking, I think, about OpTic Clayster, because I can't really imagine a world where Clay and Dashy are going to get on together. But in fairness, Clay is an incredibly fast-paced AR, and I don't know if that exactly works for the flex position, but he obviously brings leadership. He's doing well on Vegas this season. There's a chance, right, maybe that OpTic think, you know what, Clay is our second fast AR. It's a weird one, but it's maybe a possibility. Also, people talk about Sib as well, because Sib, with the whole Pred connection, has also been a revelation of the last couple of seasons. The event they won last year at Major 3, and individually, Sib has been phenomenal. Now, does he bring what Ghosty brings? I don't think so, in terms of the the communication, the leadership elements, taking stuff off the plates of others. But in terms of like pure raw ability, Sib is clear of Ghosty in my opinion. So there are things to be weighed up, especially if they, let's say they were to get Pred, and Pred has his opinions on how he thinks the team should be structured and run, and who he likes, who he doesn't like. But it's never really made too much sense to me to bring Sib and Pred in, because you lose what Ghosty and iLLeY brought in previous times as well. So I feel like Doug is right to say, look, Ghosty, you're doing everything you can. You're being very impactful for the team. You really shouldn't be too concerned, right? Because there aren't many players at all that really fit the bill for a player that can actually effectively replace that role. One player that kind of does is iLLeY, who he replaced initially, but it doesn't seem like iLLeY's going to be coming back to that team anytime soon. Whatever went wrong in the OpTic camp is definitely repairable, I would say, but unlikely to be the case. And of course, iLLeY has made it clear a couple of times that, whatever it takes, he wants to get back in the league and take revenge, this type of stuff that he's discussed. But unfortunately, no one's banged his line as yet, it seems. And he's going to be staying there on the bench for the near future. A couple of things to mention before we close out here, I thought was interesting. S&D total number of 1 versus X clutches and the percentage of non-1v4s clutched. So this is pretty interesting stats. 1v4s are probably not going to happen. I think there might have been 1 or 2 this year, actually, but it's pretty much not going to happen. But the most clutches in the league goes to Awakening at 12, Prelude at 11, which is pretty impressive, Slasher at 11, which I think makes sense because the way that some of these players play, they'll find themselves in a last alive position more often than not. But aBeZy's numbers here are maybe the most impressive, just because this guy goes in first. He gets the first bloods. But even if he does, and when he does, if he finds himself at a clutch, he's going to win. Well, he won 9 so far this season and has won 43% of his 1v1s, 1v2s, and 1v3s combines, which is pretty remarkable, actually. Like some other players like Cellium, for example, maybe Cellium's finding himself in a lot of 1v3s, and aBeZy's finding himself in a lot of 1v1s that he's winning. But, nonetheless, I thought it was pretty interesting bit of analysis on what might be the clutchest players in the league. Speaking of aBeZy, though, this great challenge here from CDL Pal, 10 gunfights against aBeZy Shipman 1v1. If you get over 3 kills, you get $1 million. If you get under 3 kills, you die straight up. Like, are you coming in? I always find these funny, right? Because it always assumes that your opponent, in this case aBeZy, is just an emotionless robot. Would aBeZy, knowing that if you don't kill him 3 times, you're just going to die on the spot, would he just gun you down 10 times in a row? Or would he say, all right, like, maybe I'll just give this guy, does he want to actually feel like he's, result in your death in that sense? I don't know. Getting a bit deep here, but you know what I'm saying. Have some compassion, you know what I mean? But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.